How to command respect without saying a word. They feel you before they hear you. The room reads your nervous system in a language older than speech, and it decides quietly, instinctively, what it owes you. Respect is not granted by agreement. It is negotiated by presence. You can talk for hours and never touch it. Or you can walk in, say nothing, and the temperature drops, the air thickens. People edit themselves. This is the part everyone pretends not to understand, because it exposes something primitive. We like to think respect is a moral currency, a fair exchange of virtues, but in the first second, it is simpler and colder. The body scans for danger, for value, for consequence. It asks, if I cross this person, will the world change for me? If I stand near them, does my life expand or shrink? It's calculating, not ethical. And your voice, your arguments, your rational case for why you deserve regardment of that arrives fast enough to beat the scan. You know this from the other side. The person who speaks softly but tightens the room. The one who doesn't hurry. The one who lets silence do the invasive work of rearranging the conversation's spine. They don't fidget. Their attention doesn't leak out of them. They don't feed on approval. And something inside you recognizes it, even if you dislike them. You step a little more carefully around your own words. You feel watched not by them, but by a version of yourself that suddenly wants to be worthy in their vicinity. The paradox is cruel. The less someone needs, the more others organize around them. Need is loud. It pulls. It makes gravity expensive. Respect gravitates toward mass, and mass is composed of coherent self, in alignment with self. What is incohesive tries to make up the difference with noise. Noise begs. Noise explains. Noise apologizes for existing. You've seen yourself leak. The laugh that comes too quick, eager to prove you're harmless. The over-explanation that tries to clean up an impression before it stains. The frantic eye contact that hunts for permission. You feel the internal conflict, the want to be liked, locking hands with the want to be respected, both pulling in opposite directions until your face can't decide what to mean. In that fracture, people file their judgments. You taught them the limits of your spine without saying a word. There is a quieter way, but it does not live in techniques, and it does not live in tricks. It lives in a kind of internal architecture that makes speech redundant. Every signal you broadcast when you're not talking becomes either a debt or an invoice. Your stillness can be a note that says, "My outcomes are not for sale today." Or it can be a silent plea, "I'm safe, please believe me." Your posture is a claim. Your gaze is a signature. Your timing is a verdict. And your refusal to grasp at the flow of attention is a subtle violence, the kind that resets what people think they can get away with in your presence. Exposure is the test. Stand in front of a room, or a person who makes you feel smaller than you pretend to be. Then don't move, don't fix, don't soothe them. Let their discomfort bloom like smoke and pass across your face, and let your face do nothing about it. Feel everything you want to do interrupt. Lighten the moment. Justify your existence. Then deny that impulse its cheap release. That is where presence starts to harden. Not because you suppressed yourself into a mannequin, but because you allowed your nervous system to remain unpurchased by their need. Silence is not empty. It is a mirror with teeth. When you stop rescuing people from their own anxieties, they meet themselves. Some will call that arrogance. Some will call it coldness. What they mean is, you didn't volunteer for the emotional labor they expected from you. They felt a gap open up, and in that gap, their status was briefly unconfirmed. Most people hate unconfirmed status. They will try to fill the gap with your words. They will demand them, but words feed the wrong god. Words are currency in the economy of reassurance. Presence is currency in the economy of consequence. Respect is the story other people tell themselves about what you are capable of and what you are willing to do. Stories need evidence. In a world trained to equate performance with noise, the most unsettling evidence is restraint. Not a theatrical stillness, not a performative lack. Real restraint. The kind that looks like someone who doesn't have a part of themselves up for auction. The kind that treats interruptions like weather, not like emergency. The kind that does not take bait, because bait is only for the hungry. There is danger here. Silence can be a mask that covers emptiness. There are people who have nothing to say because there is nothing inside them that has formed into a shape worth saying. Emptiness masquerades as calm until a test arrives. Then it collapses into either aggression or avoidance. That is not presence. That is fragility wearing a black suit. You can smell the counterfeit if you pay attention. Their stillness is brittle, not heavy. Their gaze demands. It does not receive. Their timing is cautious, not deliberate. They are performing what they think power looks like, and the body keeps secret books. The debt shows. The other danger is mistaking fear for respect. Fear is easy. Fear is a quick trick, a cheap shadow. Raise your voice, invade someone's space, use the blunt force of status or title. People will comply. They will bow to avoid bruises. But fear is rented authority. It expires the moment the shadow moves. Respect endures when you're not there, because it is pinned to an internal logic people can track. They have seen you do what you said you would do. They have seen you refuse what you said you would refuse. They have seen you suffer a cost and keep your form. That line, once drawn, disciplines the room even in your absence. The first movement is subtraction, not adding charisma, not learning tricks, taking away leakage, taking away the nervous choreography that tells people your attention is for sale. It is a funeral for the part of you that apologizes before anyone accuses. It is the end of the voice inside you that edits your posture in real time to be less threatening. It is the small death of the compulsion to announce your value like a brand new coin. When that stops, something else can start. A sense of weight that does not ask for permission to be heavy. The body is the stage. Your shoulders either collapse into the world, trying to take up less space, or they settle into their hinges like doors that will not be kicked open. Your chin either lifts to defy or tilts to beg. Your breath either hurries ahead to clear a path, or it arrives after the moment like a judge who wasn't in a rush. The room listens to all of this before it assigns language to you. It watches how long it takes you to respond. The gap between stimulus and reaction is a measure of sovereignty. The longer the gap, the more you own your reactions. The shorter the gap, the more the world owns you. You don't need a stage. Every corridor is an experiment. People watch how you walk into complexity. Do you collapse your shape to be forgettable, to avoid any accidental assertion? Do you accelerate your movements to let speed fake certainty? Or do you allow your presence to carry without assistance, trusting that quiet can be more forceful than volume? The only proof you offer is what you are willing to not do. You do not chase the laugh. You do not fill the pause. You do not advertise your patience as a virtue. You simply refuse to burn your energy to clean the air for other people. It is not about being aloof. Aloofness is indifference's costume, a wall built by someone afraid of the consequences of being known. You do not need a wall. You need a spine. A wall keeps people out. A spine keeps you from collapsing when they come in. People feel the difference. You can be deeply present and still refuse to be devoured. You can be attentive without being absorbent. You can listen without offering your throat. Respect grows in that middle ground, where your attention is generous but not obedient, where your silence is not a punishment but a boundary with edges. The world is a theater of frames. Everyone carries a narrative they want to impose, how this interaction should go, who should be superior, where the energy should flow. Most people accept whatever frame is given to them, then negotiate within it. The rare presence does something else. It does not negotiate until the frame itself is corrected. That correction is often wordless. It is the way your body remains unmoved by the frame that would make you small. It is the way your eyes do not track approval, only information. It is the way you let others speak, then refuse the duty to adjust yourself to their assumptions. This is how respect begins without language, through refusal, expressed as ease. You already know what it feels like when you break it, when you laugh too much to be carried, when your hands punctuate every sentence to animatedly prove you belong, when you explain your motive before anyone asks, as if preemptive transparency were a virtue rather than a plea. In those moments, you become noisier than your value. People respect what cost you something to become. They recoil from what begs to be purchased on discount. Silence is expensive. It costs you the comfort of being instantly understood. It costs you the social oxygen of constant affirmation. But the exchange is worth it. Your presence begins to speak its own language, and the room, no matter how reluctant, starts learning it. At the bottom of all this is a simple, brutal test. If you were mute, would your life still bend outcomes? If the answer is no, then your words were never doing what you thought they were. If the answer is yes, then you have already been communicating without sound. The challenge is stripping away the noise that keeps others from hearing it. That is the descent, the slow, voluntary surrender of performative self to the weight of unadorned form. People may dislike it. They may call it arrogance, coldness, distance, but they will feel it. And feeling precedes judgment. Respect begins there, when the body cannot deny what the story has not yet accepted. The mind is a machine for predicting social weather. It scans, compares, assigns probabilities. Respect is a forecast, the likelihood that your choices can cause rain in someone else's sky. The brain measures it in tiny, ruthless ways. Blink, rate, microstillness. How quickly your pupils sprint across the room, whether you step aside in corridors, and how quickly, whether your chest enters the space or your head does, whether silence makes you sweat or puts you at ease. None of these are moral. They are data, and the data writes a map that says, here is someone whose orbit can pull me, or here is someone I can walk through without consequence. Power is not an object. It's a relationship between nervous systems. When you walk into a room, your presence collides with other people's frames. A frame is a hypothesis about what should matter, who should lead, who is owed what. Most frames are fragile, propped up by volume and ritual. The untrained mind leaps inside them, eager to earn affection, to be useful, to be included. The trained mind stands at the edge. It lets the frame attempt to wrap around it, and if the fit is wrong, it doesn't push against it simply fails to participate. Silence is non-compliance without escalation. It is the refusal to dignify a bad proposition with a reaction. There is a quiet hierarchy beneath every conversation. Some people talk to hear themselves stabilized. Others talk to test the room's boundaries. Some talk to exert control through information fire hoses. The ones who don't talk yet bend the arc, behave like gravity wells. They set limits without announcing rules. A glance that sustains itself for one beat longer than comfortable changes the arithmetic of what someone is willing to dare. A pause after someone's confession makes them question whether they meant what they said. It is not manipulation. It is exposure. You are not doing something to them. You are removing something that kept them from seeing themselves. The protective blanket of immediate reassurance. Self-deception is the loudest enemy of respect. You want to believe you're calm. You want to believe you're independent of approval. But the body exposes your allegiance. Watch yourself in rooms where a higher status figure appears. Does your demeanor migrate? Do your gestures inflate? Do you fill silences you wouldn't fill alone? Your mouth may deny it. Your shoulders confess. Your gaze confesses. Respect cannot be tricked into existence by posture hacks. It must grow where reactivity dies. And reactivity dies when outcomes don't own you, when you can afford to be misunderstood without launching a rescue mission to repair your image. Scarcity is the mathematics of respect, not scarcity of attention as a manipulative game, but scarcity as a byproduct of focused value. If your attention is promiscuous, if it follows any stimulus, it tells people your mind is cheap. If your time leaks in small talk you hate, if your presence is easily captured by guilt or etiquette, it tells people your boundaries are hypothetical. When you become selective for real, when you can sit with your own discomfort instead of bartering yourself for relief, your presence becomes a rare resource. And the human animal values what is costly to access, but costliness alone is not enough. Danger is part of the calculus. Respect carries an undertone of potential harm, not necessarily physical, but existential. People respect what can alter their story. A person who can see you too clearly is dangerous. A person whose standards force you to face your excuses is dangerous. A person whose quiet reveals your noise is dangerous. Your silence is not a void. It is a blade that cuts through pretenses. That is why people test it. They joke, poke, introduce chaos, try to elicit a reaction. They need to know if your quiet is discipline or dysfunction. If the blade is sharp or wooden, your consistency answers for you. If your silence collapses at the first provocation, it wasn't respect you were gathering. It was a fragile truce. Consider the choreography of a room when an aligned presence enters. Conversations reorient, but not out of fear. It's the physics of certainty. People move toward stable signals because their own internal clutter exhausts them. The person who doesn't wave their hands to be seen frees others from the obligation to manage them. That relief is paid back as regard. It is not that the silent person is more important. It is that they require less maintenance. In a society addicted to mutually assured reassurance, the low-maintenance psyche becomes prestigious. Stillness is currency, but not the rigid kind that breaks under pressure. The right stillness is alive. It listens with the entire body. It does not use silence as punishment. It uses it as a diagnostic. In that quiet, the other person's intent becomes legible. They either settle, meeting your nervous system halfway, or they rattle, interpreting your lack of noise as rejection. Either way, you are not the variable. You are the test. And tests are respected because they reveal the truth, even when the truth is inconvenient. There is a fragile line between austerity and arrogance. One is built on inward wealth. The other is a decoy for insecurity. Arrogance depends on the audience. Austerity does not. Arrogance needs you to know it does not need you. Austerity simply doesn't. The difference is in the aftermath. When arrogance exits, the room exhales in relief. When true presence exits, the room remains organized around the absence, not out of fear, but because the standard lingers. People keep their voices a little lower. They interrupt each other less. They do not know why. The effect is chemical, not conceptual. The architecture of respect is also a ledger of consequences. If, beneath your quiet, there is a history of boundaries enforced calmly, your presence carries compound interest. People recall moments you left when the line was crossed, not in a dramatic exit, but in a simple refusal to spend more life on what you had already decided against. You did not punish, but you withdrew. That memory trains their prediction engine. They do not need your words to remember. They know, if I waste this person's time, it will end. If I disrespect them, they won't argue, they'll vanish. That forecast is a form of respect, because it binds their future behavior without coercion. Reputation does the rest. Human groups are gossip networks disguised as communities. Stories move faster than you do. If the story is that you are dangerous but fair, people pre-collaborate to you before you arrive. They check their tone, their claims, their jokes. They clean up their excuses. They inflate the competence in their posture. That isn't you controlling them. That is their nervous system trying to avoid the humiliation of being seen by someone who won't rescue them from the sight. The possibility of being measured without a discount politely terrifies most people. They call it judgment. It is actually clarity. When you stop using words to manage the room, you start using time. Timing is more dominant than tone. Delayed reactions communicate more than quick replies ever can. The pause after someone disrespects you carries an indictment. Was that your best? The decision to wait an extra beat before answering a demand turns a command into a request. The choice to let silence accumulate after someone's boast gives it space to collapse under its own weight. People will swear you are playing games. You are not. You are refusing to subsidize their performances with your participation. Nonverbal signals speak in the grammar of intention. Eye contact, when alive and unfrenzied, says, I am not intimidated by your existence, and I am not trying to penetrate it. I can hold you in view without invading or retreating. Microexpressions betray contempt and fear, but they also betray respect. Your slightly softened brow when someone takes a risk is a medal they will wear for months. Your neutral face when someone tries to bait you is a warning they will remember longer than any clever retort. You are teaching without speaking. I do not dance when you play music I do not enjoy. Space is an argument. Where you stand in a room, how quickly you move through it, whether you make others adjust their path or you adjust yours. These are negotiations of value. To consistently yield space out of habit is not kindness. It is training. You train others to expect you to withdraw. To jaunt through space, oblivious to others, is not dominance. It is clumsiness. Respect reflects precision. Your movements should communicate that you see others without surrendering yourself to them. You are not avoiding collision. You are choosing your line and trusting others will choose theirs. This is choreography without choreography, and it carries more weight than any speech about boundaries. The hardest revelation is that you cannot fake not needing. You can fake almost anything else. You can learn the posture. You can memorize the gaze. You can rehearse the pauses. But if your identity is still tethered to the audience, if your internal jury still sentences you to death every time you're misunderstood, your body will betray you. There will be a hairline crack in your quiet, a flicker in the eye, a covert glance toward the nearest source of reassurance. Those who have paid the real cost, the loneliness of no longer being fed by applause, will see it. And once seen, your performance becomes a costume, not a skin. The point is not to become mysterious. Mystery is cheap. You can create it by withholding trivial facts. The point is to become inevitable. When you stand in yourself so fully that speech becomes a supplement instead of a shield, your presence reorganizes behavior because it clarifies reality. People respect what clarifies reality. They may resent it. They may try to undermine it. But they will feel their own voices lower in your proximity, not to appease you, but because your coherence makes their noise intolerable to themselves. There is an ancient economy at play. Attention is tribute, silence is tax, and consequence is law. You can either collect tribute to soothe your insecurity, or you can levy tax on the chaos around you by refusing to be its host. The latter costs you popularity. It may cost you rapid opportunities that require groveling, but it purchases something even the hungry secretly crave: the recognition that your value is not contingent. When others feel that in you, they look twice before dismissing you, and they think twice before disrespecting you. That double thought is respect, the pause where their impulse meets your presence and changes course. The deeper truth is that commanding respect without words is not a performance you adopt. It is a consequence of a subtraction you survive. You are not adding more signals. You are removing your dependency on being read correctly. When the predictions of others no longer own you, your silence converts from absence to statement. It says, "I will not pay for your comfort with my soul. I will not finance your illusion with my energy. I will not answer to a frame that shrinks me." The room hears this without knowing why. Some obey, some rebel, but the architecture inside you does not change for either. At the center of this architecture is a cold agreement with yourself. You will enforce your boundaries without theater, and you will accept the cost. If someone cannot meet you without extracting from you, you will leave before you are provoked into speech. You will not litigate your worth. You will not auction your time. You will not make yourself edible to be loved. These are not slogans. They are expensive habits. Each one is a cut. Each one severs a tie to a micro-addiction, to being liked, to being understood, to being the one who makes everything smoother. Your silence becomes heavy because it is carrying the corpses of those addictions. This makes you, to some, intolerable. Not because you are cruel, but because you interrupt the loop that keeps social ease running at a loss. The loop says, "I perform, you reassure. You perform, I reassure." No one grows, but everyone feels updated. Your presence declines the trade. You do not reassure and you do not perform. You allow reality to show itself. Reality is awkward. In your silence, people notice their tricks. They notice how they chase laughs like oxygen. They notice how they flatter to bargain for safety. Without your participation, they are left alone with their methods, and most people are allergic to themselves. That allergy is misnamed as your arrogance. The uncomfortable implication is this: without the credible threat of consequence, your silence means nothing. If you have never ended a conversation when disrespected, if you have never withdrawn your time from a relationship that consumed you, if you have never enforced your standards when it cost you status, your quiet is camouflage for powerlessness. People might find it moody, poetic, enigmatic. They will not respect it. Respect follows the trail of decisions paid in full. It needs evidence, not announcements. A history. When your history is consistent, your silence becomes memory in other people's bodies. They anticipate where your line is, and they align themselves before crossing it. There is also a benevolent severity embedded in this way of being. You become a mirror no one can steal. Your gaze does not traffic in humiliation, but it does not flirt with delusion. When someone stands before you in their smallness, your silence does not rush to fill them. It holds the space where they could expand. That is not kindness the way the world sells kindness. It is leniency for the part of them that wants to rise, and intolerance for the part that wants to keep the old excuses. People feel challenged and strangely cared for, without language. They cannot articulate it, but the nervous system knows. Here is someone who will not help me betray myself. You will be tempted to explain this, to narrate your values, to assure people of your benign intent, to soften the edges so you're not misread. Explanation is sometimes necessary. It is often weakness with vocabulary. The need to explain is the last addiction. It tastes like connection and feels like peace, but at its center is a plea. Trust me. The risk of not being trusted will pull at you. Let it. If you insist on being seen as good, you will talk yourself out of the power that makes goodness matter. The world does not need your goodness. It needs your solidity, so that your goodness can carry weight when it has to. Without weight, goodness is just decoration. There will be losses. You will lose rooms that only accept you if you play the role of the endlessly accommodating. You will lose quick wins that require you to praise what you privately despise. You will lose alliances built on mutual flattery. But you gain something rarer. You become a reference point. Others calibrate by you. Not because you dominate them, but because your refusal to drift gives them a shoreline. Even those who resent you will find themselves quoting your silence in their decisions. There's a gravity to a person who can say no without needing to be thanked for it. Gravity is respect's native language. The darker implication is personal. If you build this kind of presence without building the ethics to govern it, you become a vandal. People will obey your quiet, not out of recognition, but out of confusion. You will enjoy it. You will mistake obedience for regard. You will think you've achieved some apex of influence, when you have only mastered the art of being unreadable and slightly frightening. Influence without clarity rots intentions. It deforms relationships into guessing games. If your silence hides volatility or cowardice, respect will curdle into fear. And when fear keeps people close, you are no longer respected. You're merely a hazard they're managing. So the transformation must be double. Ruthless with yourself, merciful with others. Ruthless with your need to be saved by being understood. Merciful with others need to be rescued from themselves by not rescuing them. Your presence should help the strong part of a person breathe. It should starve the part that manipulates. This is the quiet calibration of power. Your silence rewards truth with room, and starves deceit of attention. You do not boast of this, you live it, and your life tells the story faster than your mouth can. Eventually, your silence earns a shape. People will come to you differently. Some will come armed with jokes, trying to pull you down to their level of noise. Some will come with confessions, stealing time they haven't earned. Some will come ready to test whether your boundaries are staged. And some will come with their spine aligned, grateful to rest it next to yours, without having to prove anything. You do not need to manage these arrivals. Your presence filters them. The wrong ones bounce. The right ones recognize the shared fiction. We've all been forced to believe that the loudest must lead, the softest must serve, and the anxious must apologize for interfering with the rhythm of those who are better at hiding their fear. Respect, at the end, is a form of silence shared. A space where words are no longer used as tools of panic, where presence suffices. It is not the silence of absence. It is not the silence of intimidation. It is a silence with a spine. Two people can sit inside it without calculating each other. That is what your wordless command buys, the possibility of relating without market conditions, of being felt as reliable without the performance of reliability, of moving through the world without leaving everything rearranged around your insecurity. Now the uncomfortable question, the one people avoid because it doesn't flatter the ego. What does your presence make others edit in themselves, not their words, their posture, their choices, their claims on reality? Do they make themselves smaller to keep you calm? Do they expand to match a standard you embody? Do they lie to avoid your mirror? Or do they tell the truth because your silence made lying too exhausting? Whatever their edit, that is the respect your body is commanding, not the respect you imagine, not the respect you argue for. The respect your nervous system earns in the first second, when nothing has been said and everything that matters has already been decided. You could speak here. You could defend yourself to yourself, but the more honest action is quieter. Sit with the edits others make around you, and ask whether they validate the story you sell inside your head. If they don't, there is still leakage, not a technical flaw, a fracture in your allegiance. You still belong more to the audience than to yourself. Close it, not with a performance, with consequences that cost you, and with a grief you will carry privately as you let go of being universally liked. Then stand in the world and say nothing. If the room changes shape and keeps its shape when you leave, you'll know the answer. If it doesn't, you'll know the other answer. Both are information. One is a warning. In the end, commanding respect without words is a kind of vow, made in the dark, enforceable only by you. No one will clap when you keep it. No one will forgive you when you break it. It will cost you noise. It will cost you certain comforts. It will cost you the habit of managing other people's anxiety as a way to distract yourself from your own. But it will buy you something else. A life where you no longer need to announce yourself to exist. A presence that is not a performance. A quiet that leaves a bruise. And a final question you can't escape. When your voice fails, does your existence still move the room? Do you vanish into the noise you were afraid to leave?